Welcome to Faith Fondue, a podcast featuring author and speaker Haley DeMaria and teacher and blogger Ann Strickers. Faith Fondue will feature a melting pot of topics ignited by a flame, our faith, and guided by the Holy Spirit. It's the week of April 24th. This is Season 3, Episode 10. We are back after a very long spring break and Easter hiatus. It is Divine Mercy Sunday, and Anne, as I learned from you, we are in the midst of our 50-day celebration of Easter, and I am glad to be connected again. So let's start with an important question that was debated in our house on Easter Sunday. Anne, what do you prefer, Thanksgiving dinner or Easter brunch?
Haley, I love the question. I am super curious about who launched the question in your family. I have a suspicion. And what a fun topic to discuss. I think each, am I going to cop out when I say, so first of all, it made me think about what are the feelings, traditions that go with each holiday? And they're in such different seasons that I actually think each is appropriate for the season that it's in. So Thanksgiving being in the fall, the temperatures are colder outside. We need heartier meals. Not that Easter brunch is not hearty, because it's quite hearty in a different way.
Right.
But, maybe just with the stuffing and the gravy and whatnot. And then I even just think of the colors that I associate with Easter brunch, with fruit and eggs. It just feels lighter, even though it's not. So I think each are appropriate. I realize I'm copping out, but tell me, who launched the question and what answer won?
So I'm not sure an answer won. It was definitely a debated topic. I love your answer though, because you're right. You almost have an image of both meals, and they do have a color scheme that goes with them that matches the season. Right. So I actually love that. So Edward brought up the question, my younger son, and he was...
I would have said that. Yes.
Of course. Yes. And Easter brunch won, if there was a winner or not. Both. Oh. I was surprised. I was really curious about that. They love Thanksgiving dinner, but they felt like there was so much build up to Thanksgiving dinner, and then you eat in 20 minutes. And then, of course, in our house, we make everybody put Thanksgiving dinner away, and then they have to lug all the Christmas bins up and decorate for Christmas. And so maybe there's a lot more that goes into that meal is let's eat so we can decorate for Christmas. Maybe what they're saying to me is I need to allow that meal to stand on its own. Mm-hmm. Yes. But there's something about Easter brunch where they just felt like it was a more relaxed day and more of a family celebration where it was all just about the holiday. Yep. They did not articulate this, and I'm not going to try to put meaning to it, but what I would like to think, and maybe I'll kind of chew on this for our stew throughout the year, as a takeaway, is, of course, Thanksgiving is not a religious holiday, and Easter is. So perhaps there's more meaning in the Easter Sunday celebration. Mm-hmm. And, certainly we have the level of gratitude that we feel on Thanksgiving, but of course we feel that gratitude and celebration on Easter. But Easter brunch won in our house, which I think I was probably surprised about as well, but it was more fun. It was a question I have never heard before. Not sure I ever would have thought of.
Yes.
But fun to talk about.
Yes. What a great way to enter into Eastertide, which is the 8 days. So yes, thank you for the nod to the 50 days. I love that idea. 50 trumps 40. But the 8 days following Easter, this time, this liminal space that we are in. So Eastertide seems like a formal way, but we can still say Happy Easter, even though it's just a week ago. That's hard to believe. So I always feel like Easter's a little more fun with children. Not that as adults you can't have Easter egg hunts and Easter baskets, but I appreciate you pointing out the significance of this brunch and what it means for people, because that's exactly what we did. we went to Mass in Capitol Hill and then went to Clyde's, which was great. And there was a bunny that came in and, had an Easter basket. And as someone who gave up sweets for Lent, it is wonderful to be able to enjoy them once again. So that's part of our, moving on from Lent, we get to celebrate. So I hope it was a good Lent for you.
It was
It was long, I think.
It was long. We had our change challenge, which was I will look to do that every year. If we don't get a new acronym next year, I think I'm going to stick with the change. And so, we had N, which was navigate, G, which was gratitude, and then E, I believe, which was examine, which is a great word as we move into Eastertide and this 50-day Easter celebration. So that gave me some weekly perspective, I think, which made it go a little faster. I felt like all of a sudden we were moving on to the next word. But life is there's just a lot going on right now. And, in many ways, the pandemic is wrapping up. I know you just were on a plane. You did not have to wear a mask. That's a big change and shift for people. We are pretty much maskless here in Maryland in every way, in schools and transportation. But like every physical challenge, and I actually talk about this in a lot of the talks that I give in terms of my own physical challenge, once the physical challenge is done, so to speak, or wrapped up, I think that's when the emotional challenges begin and the emotional healing. And I think we're seeing that there have certainly been a number of emotional challenges throughout the pandemic, but I think we need to be very aware as a society that just because the pandemic, quote unquote, is here, it's more of an endemic now, I think is the word that we use, is, COVID's not going away. We're learning to live with it, but it's done in many ways. But the emotional challenges, the mental health issues are still there, and I think will be very prevalent for a long time. So it's been a challenging spring, a lot to celebrate, but I think we all need to continue to remember that there are people out there who are struggling, and be aware that with spring and rebirth and resurrection comes a remembrance as well.
So true. We say we're Easter people, and we have to live it, because I don't disagree. Our world is fraught, and we have struggles. And I had a hard conversation with a friend at Notre Dame who was just talking about the reality of, war in Ukraine and what this could mean. And it was heavy. And yes, people have experienced a lot of loss. And I thought that's an interesting idea, Haley, about the emotional healing, because that will come at different timeframes for folks. And in light of that, I do think one of the most, I don't know, because, we're talking about ourselves, like my life as a Catholic Christian means for me that I'm a person of hope, and that I don't let cynicism reign, that I seek the good, and that I don't stay, because I'm telling you, myself included, it is so easy to be negative, to be snarky, one of our favorite words, to really get down in some of these struggles. And I just, if I'm a person of faith, I think I have to live with this hope, and that we can bring hope to others. Why? Because Christ is risen. That's what we celebrate. And whether or not I preach that literally through that message, but that I live that way, I think that's one of my core beliefs, that I'm called to live that way.
I love that you
by our baptism.
Right. No, I love that you articulated it that way, because I that is the way I strive to live as well. And I do believe every single one of us could wake up every morning and focus on something negative. We all have negatives in our lives. We all have something that's sad or bringing us down, or a health challenge, or relationship issue. Whatever it is, job, family, health. There are things that we could focus on in a negative way every single day. But there's also things to celebrate every day, and to focus on that hope is such a great. I think we need to be aware of the hard issues that are out there, but look at them through the lens of hope. I love the way you put that. We because there is a lot to celebrate, and just this weekend we had at St. Anne's where I work our first major in-person event in since the pandemic started over 2 years. We had our auction and disco. It was a disco theme, and it was a party. You could just now it was outside and it was under a tent.
Okay.
There were about
Is this
200 people there.
Parents?
Excuse
The
me?
students?
No, just the
Is it
parents.
family? Okay. Okay.
Just the parents. And you needed it. You could just tell that this community, and we really focus on community. It's one of the hallmarks of our school. It's one of the things I loved about it as a parent.
Yeah.
And I've loved this event since my boys started there. So
Yeah.
it just, as a community, we have to be together. That is what community is. And community has been done online, and everyone has done it the best we can, whether it's online happy hours, whether it's online mass. We held it together as best we could.
Yes.
But this
Yes.
community needed to come together and celebrate, and we did. And it was successful in every way that event like this should be successful: financially, community building, just coming together for the kids. It was that was hopeful. The hope for the future of just where we can help these kids go and be was exciting to see. But you're right, we need hope every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. Commitment 101. So maybe that's one of our takeaways, one of our reminders. I mean, that's the motto of Holy Cross. The cross is our hope. It's our anchor, really. So
Yes.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you for rising.
Yes, I know. Well, and this week's gospel, it is Divine Mercy Sunday. I was reading about that because I remember we talked about it last year. And I don't know if you knew this. I certainly did not. It's a relatively new church date. I'm not sure what you call it.
Right.
Celebration.
Feast or
Right. Feast.
Sure.
They actually did call it a feast. So it was first celebrated in 2000. So it's only our 22nd Divine Mercy Sunday. But it has the gospel reading today is one that I think about a lot. And, of course, it has the words, "Peace be with you," which is we share with one another every week in Mass. I have noticed more recently people are hugging, they are shaking hands. I love having that back. I appreciate that part of community is being there and truly wishing someone peace with a greeting. But it also has the story of what I was always told it was called or known it to be is, doubting Thomas. Thomas who sees Christ, and Christ says the words, "Blessed are those who have not seen and have believed." And of course, that is all of us. None of us have seen Jesus in the flesh. However, I truly believe that we have all seen the presence of God in our lives. And if you seek it, and if you are open to seeing it, you will see it. And I truly believe this in my life. If I have felt the presence of my faith, of whatever you want to call it, God, Jesus, prayer, I have felt that. It is a very real, tangible thing for me. I think I needed to see that. There are times where I think maybe I was this doubting Thomas who needed something very, very tangible in terms of faith, so I would believe. So have I seen Jesus in the faith, in the flesh? No, of course not. We hope at some day we do. That's the resurrection. But I think many of us have seen God or seen the presence of God and hopefully then believe. But I think about that a lot. Those who have not seen any part of these miracles and still believe is really impressive.
Yeah. And that is the beauty of that gospel, because I think there's so many different things to reflect on with it. So I appreciate what you're saying about what it makes you think about. And you're right, it is us and I think what I'm hearing you say is a commitment to seeing the good, or seeking and you shall find, right? That's what we're told. I always think about his response as well, "My Lord and my God." So once there's this encounter, then that is his response, which is so beautiful. And I always say that when the priest holds up the Eucharist for consecration, I always just say, my Lord and my God, just an acknowledgement of Jesus as Lord and God. And my pastor today invited us to look at the Caravaggio painting. So maybe that could serve as our template, where Thomas is really going in and putting his hand into Jesus's wounds. It's almost exaggerated, but he spoke about it in terms of his faithfulness. Unless I see him, unless I put my hands in his side, not wanting to believe, but just the importance of faith and faithfulness. And this exaggeration invites us, I think, really to quite a contemplative prayer, whether or not it's praying with that beatitude that you mentioned, or praying with the words, my Lord and my God, or praying for faithfulness. There's so many opportunities with this gospel. I always think about it because today is ordination at University of Notre Dame. There are 3 men who will be ordained Holy Cross priests. And having gone to an ordination in the past, it's always the same gospel, which I love. And just thinking about the role that these men will play in people's lives by their service to others. So that's another takeaway. Pray for them and anyone who bears witness to their faith through their words and ministry, but really their life commitments, whether it's, marriage or their calling or whatever it is that we do. So a good takeaway for all of us.
Absolutely. And imagine the faith that they must have. They are taking a huge leap of faith in joining the priesthood. It's remarkable. Yeah, they do deserve our prayers.
Yeah. So something so countercultural. I was thinking, I heard a speech that I want to just share at Notre Dame. I was there for the Alumni Association Affinity Groups meeting, and Father Dan Grudy spoke to our meeting on the last day. But he talked about a number of things. He talked about like the advancements outside. Like he talked about it started with like the moon and what it took to land this lunar module and the energy. And then he talked about the iPhone and like how we've totally advanced outwardly in terms of science and development and what we can do, but then ask the question of how have we developed the interior life? And are we developing the interior life? And if so, how? So that was his first question, which I thought was a great question, because there's a lot of struggle. I think I would dare say maybe we're not doing enough for the interior life. And that's part of why there's a lot of mental health problems in our country and challenges and whatnot. So first question was that. And the second question or idea that he shared was that Jesus was not the answer man, but he was actually the great questioner. And he said this, and I didn't know it. He said, Jesus is asked 187 questions in the gospel. So, scripture scholars will comb through the gospels, 187 different questions. He answers 3. And apparently Jesus asks 307 questions. Essentially, for every question Jesus answers, he asks 100. So he said, Jesus is actually the great questioner. He's not the great answer man. And I thought that was so interesting. Again, thinking of God as this questioner as opposed to the answer person, which we always go to God for answers. Right. But I said, well, this is Christ the teacher, and he did it with the image of Christ the teacher, the mural, and our relationship to, especially at a university, to Christ as a teacher. So the question was, well, so what? If Jesus is the great questioner, what does that mean for us? And bringing it back to the interior life, he said, really, these questions are an opportunity to reflect, right? So when Jesus is asked, who do you say that, who are you? Peter, says, who are you? And he says, well, who do you say that I am? That is an invitation to reflect. Who is Christ to us, to you, to me? Who is he to Thomas? Right? He was a friend. He was somebody that died brutally, and, he missed him. So he's back, and this is confusing. Really good stuff to chew on, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Because think of how frustrated we get when we ask someone a question and they flip it back to us with the question. That can be very frustrating sometimes. And
Mhm.
I wonder if
Mhm.
anyone ever got frustrated with Jesus when he did that to them.
I love that question. I wish you had been in the audience. That's a great question.
Because if
I'm
I,
sure they did,
of
right?
course, of
I
course
mean,
they
yeah,
did. If you're asking me who I am and I say, well, who do you think I am? What kind of
yeah,
answer is
right.
that,
So
right?
like, yeah, yes.
Interesting. Okay, I'm definitely
She's
going to
got
chew
away
on
with a
that.
lot. Yeah. So some things to think about, especially in light of, yeah, this Jesus. Who is he? Wow. Well, he rose from the dead. That's a whole new layer to it, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, lots to think about in our takeaways. Did you at least have a time to relax over spring break, or was it go, 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 or just good nourishment for the soul?
I think a lot of nourishment, um, not a relaxing break. I mean, time with family is always special and loved being, my brother got married in August and just getting to know my sister-in-law better and spending time with my nieces is always a gift. And they have, two cats. Pets are just big parts of people's families and not everyone's a cat person. We grew up with a cat and I have to say they're pretty fun. They were a lot. They were really fun and just loving, and their personalities and yeah, pets make people's lives dramatically for families and children. It's just a really special part of something. So, whatever way families are able to do that, I think is great, and um, that part is special. I wouldn't say I don't even know what relaxing means anymore. Haley, do you have a thought on what relaxing means? I
No,
mean, maybe
relaxing for me, and I've done
in the
this a
throes of
lot,
it.
taking a
Yeah.
long walk, taking a long swim, being by myself. It's
Yeah.
but that's not relaxing to everybody. For some people relaxing is putting their feet up and watching TV.
Sure.
So relaxing means
Yeah.
different things to different people. There, I guess there's a difference
Yeah.
between physically relaxing and recharging. And
Yeah.
I think recharging is the most important thing. Physically, of course, we need to take care of ourselves as well. But it's a busy time, and maybe that's why Easter brunch is so nice because it is a long meal. And, for many people, they do go to brunch. And for many of people, it is a buffet. And you have to pace yourself. So you go get a plate and then you sit and you relax. And
Yeah.
this
Yep.
this is spring. Spring is busy. And so how many times do we sit down and have a 2 hour meal? Not very often. It's but it's an exciting time too. We're moving into graduation season. School
Yep.
is ending soon for a lot of colleges.
And you will have a
I
graduate.
I have a
Yep.
graduate. I actually am traveling this week to give a talk. I haven't done
Great.
I've been giving I've given talks in person since COVID, but most of them have been locally. So I'm looking forward to that. I have not been on a plane without a mask, so that will be new for me
Yeah.
recently when I fly. But it's so I'm excited about that. I'm excited to share that part of myself. Um, but yeah, so it's moving into a crazy time. May will be a busy month. We do have a high school
Yep.
graduate. My older son will be coming home. It's all good things to celebrate, but I do think we need to make sure I do need to make sure that I give myself time to recharge. If not
Mhm.
physically, definitely
Yeah.
emotionally. So that will be my takeaway, is to make sure that
Yeah.
as busy as life is right now,
Yep.
to take a moment to just take a deep breath and make sure that I am recharged so that I can do what I need to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. Well, I think Lent is certainly a time to slow down. That's literally what the word means. It means a couple things, but it's taking those lessons we learned from Lent and living them out as part of our call. But also, I think just being back on this podcast is great because it's committing to things that you value or you enjoy. So if it's a walk, or you said like time with yourself, or whatever that may be, even if it's just a little bit of time, committing to that. So a good reminder.
It's a great reminder, and you're right. It's I will admit this. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I listen more carefully to the gospel on weeks when I know we're recording, because I know I need
Oh,
to reflect on it and listen to how it
huh,
speaks to me. I
yeah.
learned that today because of course it's been a few weeks since we've done this, but I knew we were going to tape.
Great.
So that
Yeah,
that was interesting for me to
that
learn
is
is
interesting.
right.
Yeah.
So I need to chew on that too. Am I not
Yeah.
normally paying
Right.
attention? I usually think I
Yeah.
am, but
Huh.
I hear it differently when I know I have to talk about it.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but I always have to live it. So just because
Yeah.
I'm not talking about it, if we aren't taping a podcast last week, I need to live it still. So I should be listening
Yep.
just as closely. So
Yeah.
lots
Great
to think about.
realization. I appreciate that. Mhm.
So good
Yeah.
luck getting back to work this week. I hope you feel
You
recharged.
know? Yes. Yes. I do. I think it's good to step away. That's the beauty of travel too, is that we appreciate new places, but it also helps us appreciate our homes. So,
Absolutely.
um, yeah, back at it and have a great week. We'll be in touch with our listeners this time next week.
Sounds great. Thanks, Anne.
Thanks, Haley.